Welcome to part 2 of Nobunaga's ambition Abridged. In the previous part, we conquered Owari province, or most of it, and started the quest to try not to die to the Imagawa clan. This quest proved to be tricky, and I mean that quite literally, in that there was eventually a trick to allow us to win by preempting that it was going to happen and making various preparations on the campaign map. So eventually we passed that quest. This means we don't die for a bit, and now we just need to finish off the Imagawa castles in Owari province, which we're doing right here. We just siege them out and they surrender. And that's that. We have now fully unified our province, and we can ignore our war with the Imagawa. It's still going on, but we've got an ally between us and them now, the Matsudaira, so we'll let the Matsudaira deal with it and hope it all goes well. We do have some Iko-Iki troops in our territory, but I'm going to ignore them because I'm pretty sure they're just standing out there to stop us from moving over towards their settlement to the west. So they're not aggressive, or at least not very aggressive. We'll go home then, and immediately after this we have another quest to deal with. I mentioned in the last part, we have this sort of claim to go and capture Mino province to our north, which, well, it isn't a real claim. Essentially, we have a marriage alliance to the people that used to rule it, the previous faction within the Saito clan, which has gone through some sort of political upheaval. So we can go in claiming to be restoring the rule of the previous daimyo of the area, and then of course we'll just accidentally make ourselves daimyo of the area since we happen to be there with all of the castles locked down by our own troops. They probably couldn't stop us at that stage. So it's a pretty good excuse, and it's a story quest, so we'll go for that. It comes alongside 2 other mini quests where we have to get 100 trust with 2 other clans. Trust is the diplomatic currency which you effectively buy using gold. The Matsudaira one is easy enough, they're already allied to us, it's the guys allied to us through the story quest. And the other one was the Azai to our top left, our northwest. To get that trust, you just have to send an officer to go hang out with them. This costs money, but gains you trust, and you can use the trust to buy diplomatic things off them later. In this case though, we'll just do it for the sake of the story quest and get far more than we'd need to see what happens. I'm also going to be doing some appeasing. This is where you get the settlements that effectively aren't controlled by the samurai, there are no military bases there, to like you, so that they will pledge support and send troops and money to you, and it actually proved to be quite good. It's very profitable to have all of the little mini clans liking you, so I tried to get these quite a lot. With that then, we essentially just need to wait for an opportunity to attack, and I think in the very next turn I saw a pretty good opportunity because the Saito clan, our new enemy to the north, were moving their troops from right to left across their province. So I thought, let's jump in there and try to intercept them, the idea being that because their troops will be split up by them manoeuvring around like this, we may be able to take them down in an easier fashion than just straight up invading and fighting them in field battles would yield. So we get this situation here. They've sent about half of their stuff down to fight the Iko-Iki by the looks of things in the bottom left, and we catch the tail end of their army as it's marching down this road and attack it from a couple of different sides. They are still free to leave, the road behind them is open, and units can just leave battles as they did just there. In this case though, for whatever reason they get aggroed back in and do stop to fight us, so that's what we wanted. Now we have an overwhelming advantage in this small battle, and we can make it better using some micromanagement. We're fighting 2 units, and because they were aligned in a column on the campaign map, it's like that in battle too, so when you join the battle they've got 1 unit in the middle of the map and their other units somewhere off to the left, off screen, so we can focus them down individually. Maybe this is better than letting it play out as an auto-resolve on the campaign map where it might consider the 2 units to be fighting together. It kind of looks like we have more of an advantage than we do here. We're attacking them with 4 units at once, and we're still not doing that much damage. I'm still not really sure how the combat works in this game. Looks like they tried a last-ditch charge there, then got confused by it when they died, and we defeated that unit in the end. There's another unit back there which we need to go and do the same thing to, but obviously that's easy enough. So with that, we've taken out a good portion of their army already. The other units start coming back, and there's this little standoff here. I had ordered my troops to advance, but there's a kind of traffic jam. We have too many units on the road. Only a certain amount of troops can move down a road at a given time. In the end, it's the enemy that advances to me because we can't get our army moving, but that's fine because we are just left with more relatively easy battles fighting small units in a big column formation, one at a time. So that all goes great. Here's another example of me not really understanding the combat system. We were shooting the enemy just fine from the front and I had this other unit off to the flank. I figured, well, let's do a cavalry charge into their flank because this unit is equipped with horses, which allows you to use that special charge move. But I'm still not sure what the advantage of charging is meant to be. It says there's a chance to confuse the enemy, which sounds nice, but in terms of the actual damage it does, it's pretty devastating for you to do it. You can see you take enormous casualties doing a charge even into the flank here. And I'm pretty sure if I'd held off on that charge and just shot more arrows, we ultimately would have lost fewer troops. I guess it was faster, so maybe in a time-sensitive situation, you can sacrifice troops quickly to just get some enemies out of the way before reinforcements show up or something like that. But anyway, it just doesn't work like it does in Total War, and that's what's going to confuse me for the most part since I'm so used to playing those games. Anyway, we move on. There was one more unit sitting by a nearby castle. A couple of our units will suffice to take them down. And the nice thing about winning a battle near a castle is it gives you this little bonus chance to reduce the castle's health, which makes it easier to take afterwards. So that's handy. With this, we'll go on to send some units to go for that minor castle. We actually need to take the bigger castle in the top right or the middle now. However, because that castle is very big, it's hard to take. In order to successfully besiege a castle, you need to have more troops than the castle has hit points, I believe, or something like that, and we're nowhere near that mark at the moment. We're even going to struggle taking this minor castle off to the left. In terms of economy, I'll mention briefly that it's not going very well. I'm not really commentating on the economic side of things, but essentially we are blocked from growth right now because it costs money to upgrade your settlements, a little bit of money each month. So if you don't have enough money to do the upgrades, you just don't grow your economy. Meaning we desperately need to get at least the number of settlements we have times 100 gold per month in income so that we can avoid falling behind the other factions and generally accumulating opportunity costs. As you can see, my army is not enough to successfully besiege this smaller castle. I think it might be the castle's hit points plus how many troops are inside. You have to have that many troops besieging it for their morale to go down. Because we don't have that, the alternative is to attack the castle. This reduces the castle's health by a bit more than it kills you, so over time you will be able to balance things out and get to the point when you can reduce their morale. The thing is, in this case, we not only don't have that many troops because we just fought a bunch of battles, but we don't have supplies. You can only be in the field for a couple of months at a time, so we're going to have to send our units back, meaning our campaign hasn't been entirely successful. We did take out a whole bunch of enemy units, but no territory was taken, and of course those territories will be gradually respawning those units, so we need to take them as soon as possible. For now, we'll rush home. I think you can get supplies while you're in the field somehow. Maybe if you just move back to your castle and then move back to the place you're trying to attack, it restores your supplies. In this case, we do it the slow way by cancelling the campaign and then starting another one the next month. In this case, by just focusing down that small castle, we are able to get the numbers we need for it to surrender. So that's all well and good, but we still don't have enough troops to take the big castle, which is the actual objective right now, the story objective. And speaking of story objectives, we have just completed the one to get 100 trust with the Azai. When you have 100 trust, you can use that trust to effectively buy an alliance with another faction by having an arranged marriage between yourself and them. You have to have someone who's eligible to be married. In this case, because it's just a story event, Nobunaga's going to send his sister off to get married to Nagamasa Azai, their faction leader. And with that, we have another ally, and that ally may indeed come in useful. You can see right here, our advisors are telling me I'm not able to take Inuyama Castle. This is a great feature where you can effectively just click on the thing you want to take, and the game works out a good way for you to do it and just does it for you. It just sends your troops out to march towards the location along the fastest route from wherever your troops are, which I really like. That's a very me feature, avoiding the micro of moving all of the units individually. However, because as it said, we actually don't have enough troops to do this, we need to use our new alliance. So what I thought I'd do is use this relief force thing. you can spend trust with a faction to have them send units to do stuff for you. So I'm going to order the Azai to go and attack Inuyama Castle. What I hoped was that with my troops combined with theirs, we would have enough numbers to get the siege going. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that, as we'll see. Plus, the downside to doing this automatic deployment thing is that your units don't react to the situation, so this small army here runs into an enemy force. Luckily I noticed and told them to turn back before they started a disadvantageous battle. Anyway, the situation ends up fine, because the enemy armies here are then attacked from 3 sides thanks to the arrival of our Azai allies, and we just annihilate them using the auto-resolve-esque feature of just not fighting the battle, which just makes it happen automatically. Looks like we win and a bunch of people leveled up and learned stuff. Handy. So with this, we've got all of our troops here, but this road thing I mentioned earlier, the limit on the number of troops, also applies to nodes on the road. So you can't have more than a certain number of people standing at a given point on the road, meaning we can't get all of our troops to group together and do this siege, and for that reason I'm actually going to leave. I'm going to have most of my troops just walk off somewhere else, which is going to be a very ingenious plan, as we'll see in a second. We've also now completed the Get 100 Trust with Matsudaira. This effectively doesn't do anything because we're already allied to them from a previous story event. It's just a chance to meet the guy who actually wins this war historically thanks to his alliance with Nobunaga in large part. Matsudaira is actually the later Tokugawa clan. Names change over time sometimes for reasons. Let's not worry about that for now. One of my retainers asks me to set up some policies. The policy system is like a background passive buff thing. Well, it's not really a buff, it's kind of like a side grade. You have this system of policies where you can spend money to have an effect on your economy for the most part. But each effect comes with some sort of downside or demerit, as the game calls it. So that's handy. It allows you to focus your economy on doing certain things. Because we have no money really, we can't actually do any of them. And also many of them aren't unlocked. You can see on the right you have this progressive versus conservative system where certain policies aren't available if you're not at certain points on the scale, like the conservative style factions can't do policies that interact with Westerners, stuff like that. So anyway, here's the ultimate plan. It's working now. Because I've abandoned this siege, our allies are still going ahead trying to do it. So they're storming the castle, getting a bunch of their own troops killed, but they're reducing the castle's hit points, and those reductions are semi-permanent. You can restore the hit points of a castle, but it's slow and expensive. So this basically means that our allies will waste a bunch of time and troops doing that, and when we finally come back, the castle will have a lower threshold for being besieged, and maybe we can do it then. That's the idea. A pretty nasty strategy. We'll just sacrifice our allies because that is really the Nobunaga way. He was an absolute psychopath, doing the same thing here, sacrificing my own troops, and then Nobunaga sweeps in to finish off that battle. As we just spend the time waiting for the Azai to die, going to take some of the lesser castles around the edge of Mino. Our allies in the Matsudaira clan were helping out with this one, or you could say they were just doing it and I showed up to help them. Well, I didn't even help them. You can see there's another traffic jam. The mountain roads have lower capacity, so I think the traffic's even worse there. Meaning we just kind of watched and ran out of supplies while some fighting happened, and the other siege we set up is just progressing smoothly. They'll surrender soon enough. I ended up throwing more and more things over here to the east. What I was thinking is that the Matsudaira units might leave or something and then we would move on in. But really we are just running out of supplies, so we end up not really participating so much over here and trying to move back towards Inuyama Castle. While this happens, we get a cutscene here, which I feel like is a bit out of place. It's a cutscene where Nobunaga's being mean to his tutor again, like he was being in the beginning. I think because we've gone through the objectives quite quickly, Nobunaga's supposed to still be a teenager, but we've leveled up to him being portrayed as an adult by completing story quests. So we get this weird thing where he's talking to this guy and calling him Gramps the whole time. And eventually he's so annoying to his tutor and so unruly, his tutor decides to kill himself in order to make a point. I have a vague memory of learning about this once. I think it might have happened at his own dad's funeral or something. I feel like it was more dramatic in real life. I'm not sure it actually did anything though. The tutor dies, we lose that character, And Nobunaga supposedly has a change of heart, but not really. I guess because I'm kind of Nobunaga in this campaign, it doesn't mean anything. That was just for fun. Anyway, Inuyama Castle has been successfully damaged by the Azai. They've gone home now, but they took off more than half of the castle's hit points, meaning I only have to sacrifice a few troops to get those hit points down low enough for the castle to be vulnerable. As for that other castle in the mountains, I eventually did get in and help out with the siege, but we don't take the castle, the Matsudaira do. I was wondering how this was going to work. Like, who is responsible for taking the castle? Who gets the claim? There's no claim system like in a Paradox game. So maybe it's whoever helps the most gets the castle afterwards when there are multiple factions fighting. Not sure. If you happen to know, write it in the comments or something. Anyway, after that, we do go back to Inuyama Castle. It eventually surrenders once it's weak enough, and thus we have completed the quest to secure Mino. We haven't actually secured all of Mino yet, but that's good enough for the quest. This castle is special. It gets renamed to Gifu after this for reasons I forget. It might even become our capital as well. Basically, it's the biggest and most impressive town that we've got so far. So we'll sit in here and lord it up over our new province, and there's not much they can do about that. But not so far away, there is some trouble in the capital, as the next cutscene explains. This evil-looking fellow is going around killing everyone. Most importantly, he's trying to kill the shogun, so that's really going to ruin this whole shogunate deal. The shogun himself doesn't seem too angry about this. He decides to try and fight all of the samurai storming his castle. I suppose that's the thing to do at the time. Well, he ultimately doesn't succeed, and the shogun does die, which further weakens the shogunate. I mean, we were already just killing each other without casus belli half the time, so I think the country's already falling apart. It's a bit late for the shogun to do anything. However, the relevance of this is it all leads to another member of the Ashikaga shogunate family, who could become the shogun now, trying to get help from samurai to reclaim his throne. Nobody wants to do it, but Nobunaga gets convinced to join this cause by this guy, Mitsuhide Akechi, the guy who historically killed Nobunaga, so it's all going very well. Let's get in with this guy. And the idea is that by supporting the shogunate, quote unquote, we have an excuse to ourselves go to the capital and kill everybody, and then we can restore the shogunate in the same way that we restored the Saito family to Mino. That is, we'll just happen to be there and take everything over, and maybe nobody will notice. This means we're going to be going up against some stronger opponents now. We have to take down the Miyoshi clan, who control the capital and loads of territory over there. In the meantime though, our quest is actually to take Kanoji Castle, controlled by the Rukaku, because it's on the way. I had been trying to make the Rukaku into my ally, so we're kind of conflicting with the plot now. I need to stop being nice to them and be mean to them. I was planning to also ally with the Takeda, but I think we'd have the same problem there since we are fated to fight them due to story reasons. Before we go west, I did want to finish off Mino province. We still had one more Saito fortification to take down, so I sent a few units over there to take a look. I tried out another charge in this battle, and again we take extreme casualties. We lose like a third of our troops there in about 2 seconds, so charging seems to be a way to just get your own troops killed, as mentioned earlier. Maybe there's some more strategic use for it that I haven't worked out yet. Suffice to say, we are going to be able to take down what is now only a one castle faction in the Saito with all of our stuff. A while later, they surrender, and that's that. The Saito clan is gone, and Mino province is officially secured. Since we've captured a bunch more towns, we do now have the income I need to constantly upgrade the towns every turn or every month. So we've gotten out of the economic rut I mentioned earlier, meaning everything will just be growing in some regard all the time, and if we sit around and do nothing, we'll still get stronger, although we want to fight as much as possible actually, because your troops can replenish. So if you have full troops, you're missing out on a type of growth in that your troops aren't replenishing. You might as well constantly be under your maximum troop count so that you can keep restoring them. To that end, I thought let's just sneak over to the next province and take down the Iko Iki at Nagashima Castle. Again, this is pretty easy because it's just one location and we can just swamp it with troops at this stage. We get an interesting offer while the fighting is happening. The Kiso clan asked to be my vassal. I didn't even know who these guys were, so I was like, what am I getting into here? If I vassalize some random clan, will this draw me into a dangerous war or something like that? That was the worry. So I just said yes in the end and then looked around trying to work out who that was. It's somebody off to the east in the Takeda's territory. I'm not sure they're going to last very long out there if the Takeda decide to unify their own province. Well, we'll see. We do bring down the Ikoiki, taking Nagashima Castle with an uneventful siege, extremely unhistorical. I'm pretty sure Nobunaga spent like years besieging Nagashima and eventually killed like 20,000 civilians in order to make the enemy surrender. Just some classic Nobunaga stuff. He does like getting people killed. And of course we'll be playing that way in this campaign as we have been doing so far. With that we can take our time really. There is actually a time limit on the story quests, so we have to take the capital within a couple of in-game years. I can't remember the exact numbers. But we don't necessarily have to go right for that, and I was thinking maybe we should attack someone else in the meantime and just build up our strength. Like we could go to the southwest and attack that random clan down there, or something. Not sure if it's really a good idea. The only worry is that we do something that kind of breaks the quest progression and that causes us to lose out on some handy quest reward, like the Shogun giving us a load of free territory or something for quote-unquote saving him. Well, we'll have to see. Why don't you join me for the next part as we head west and hope everything off to the east just leaves us alone.